Planet X Games is back and bringing the heat with an all-new fourth installment of The Phylactery, launching March 1st and running through March 22nd on Kickstarter. This all-new issue of The Phylactery is bigger, badder, and louder in every way, with the same heart and feel of old-school fantasy RPGs we grew up playing. The Phylactery is loaded from cover to cover with quick and easy resources like NPCs, plot hooks, and weapons for use directly at your gaming table. There is no fluff in here, nothing padding out the page count. The Phylactery 4 is all killer, no filler, and this time it's brought a friend to the dance. On March 1st, Planet X Games is also launching the Phylactery Omnibus, celebrating the 4th year of putting the grind back in Grindhouse. This omnibus collects the Phylactery 1 through 4 and includes over 50 pages of all new, never-before-seen content. This big old boy is perfect for that plug-and-play, straight-to-the-table experience the original issues are known for. So if you're looking for a party that's all OSR all the time, Planet X has got you covered. Check out the Phylactery and the Phylactery Omnibus, running from March 1st to March 22nd on Kickstarter.
This is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse, hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. He says it looks like the only thing crawling today is you, Hambone, Stu Horvath.
It's true. You got like several dozen frogs in your throat today.
It's funny, man, because like I spent 2 years diligently trying to not get COVID and protect the people that I love from COVID. So we did it. We got through COVID. And then I get zapped with a flu, like an actual flu. Like, and that's what's going around right now. Like, you know, toddlers are bringing it home for daycare. Everyone's getting the actual flu. So I'm like midway through the actual flu. And it sucks.
I am sorry to hear that. Yeah, that the flu is no fun. No fun.
Well, you know what was fun? We are going to have a quick little chat about Dungeon Crawl Classics. Stu and I actually played Dungeon Crawl Classics together last night with our buddy Zog, who is the author of Blackout for DCC. And Sean Dillon joined in as well. So did Sally. And we had a blast.
We did. Zog's been on me for a while to, get the taste of the DCC, especially the funnel, because I think that when I came to DCC, the idea of the funnel was just the absolute antithesis of what I want from a role-playing game. Like, I want characters who are like fully realized and bespoke carefully, and that makes the horror of their deaths so much worse. But I like characters to have kind of a feeling of being rooted in the story and the world. Just randomly rolling up 4 characters and then putting them through a meat grinder just doesn't, like, I was just like, this is not for me. This is like a different kind of style of play that is just like not what I'm looking for. And Zaga's always like, no, you're wrong. Like, the funnel is great. It's fun. It builds bonds with characters that are unexpected. And he was right. I had a blast. I will say that in general, I feel like Dungeon Crawl Classics is less gonzo than advertised. I think that Doug Kovac's art does so much to sell this just over the top feel. And I love that. But it was interesting to me that we played the classic funnel. Like, when you say funnel, most people think Sailors on the Starless Sea, right?
And that's what we played by Harley Stroh.
Yep. And like, the dude on the cover is like this crazy horned guy with one burning eye and a flail, and he's got the chaos symbol on him. And like, yes, but like, our game was kind of weird and crazy and like all over the place. But like, I didn't get the over the topness that I kind of built up in my head, which is good because I'm not sure that I really would have enjoyed that. It felt like D&D with special sauce. Like, regular D&D is a hot dog. This is a chili dog with some zip,
I see that. And that being said, I've now been playing Dungeon Crawl Classics for a little bit, and I will tell you, the beauty of Dungeon Crawl Classics is it can get as gonzo as the person who running it wants it to go.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And this, first time playing with people, it's always a little bit subdued, as it were, a little muted, because you have people who learn the system the first time, people who are kind of like coming from traditional D&D over to it for the first time and figuring out how to make the engine run you know, you got to walk a little bit first.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, having run DCC, I will tell you, for me, you know, and to be clear about this, I fucking love Dungeons and Dragons. Any edition's the right edition. If you're having fun playing it, it's the best edition. I love Dungeons and Dragons. And that being said, you know, having played Dungeons and Dragons for so many years now, you know, there's always that weird experience that you get when you play like first edition, second edition, that, you know, you maybe just don't get anymore. And yet you don't want to just play first edition or second edition, kind of like waiting for the evolution of that. So with Dungeon Crawl Classics, it felt like coming home to me. And all the weird shit I wanted to do, I was able to do, and figuring out how to make things more exciting and it ramping up and using luck and knowing that, like, you know, you have these big moments that you can have within your own characters, even at 0 level, is kind of huge. And also having the ability to adjust on the fly, because I love, of course, the OG 7 polyhedral dice, you know? DCC has these weird dice, and the weird dice are fun because sometimes you need something that's in between those 7 classics. And sometimes you need something that's a little more than those 7 classics, but not as much as a D100. And that's where DCC, I think, finds the sweet spot. And, you know, this was definitely a little more of a subdued game. Even though a lot of weird stuff happens, I love it. And I love it. And for me, you know, I will always play Dungeons and Dragons. I will, if you want to have a game and there's Dungeons and there's Dragons and it's whatever current edition Wizards of the Coast is putting out, I will saddle up to your table and I will play, and I'll have smiles on my face for miles. That being said, after playing DCC for a little while now, this is my house system. I love it.
Yeah, and like the funnel is interesting. Like I was surprised at how fond I grew of my 4 dweebs almost from the outset. As soon as I named them, they kind of came together as characters, even though it is deeply improbable that this group of brothers would go off into this hell place. I also like the fact that everybody's just like, yes, all 4 of our characters are brothers. It's like every grouping of 4, it's like just everybody in this town has 4 kids and they all happen to be brothers.
Mine was more of a gang.
Yeah, true.
I named mine Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Joey Bishop.
And I had Fergus, Hamish, Banquo, and Stanley.
Stanley's a good name.
Stanley is a good name, especially in the contrast with the Scottish one. I was really pleased with that.
I think more people should name their children Stanley. By and large, Stanley is a name that should never go away. Stan is a good name. I digress, though. So, yeah, I mean, it gave you the freedom to kind of really play with the characters because fun is in the name funnel. You know, I played mine like Frank Sinatra would send all the other guys off to do stuff, but he would send, you know, Joey Bishop first because that was his least favorite. And then after that, he sent Dino. And then, like, you know, occasionally Sammy would get in the fray, but like for the most part, like the last man standing probably is going to end up being Frank Sinatra because he's not lifting a finger. The other guys are dead.
Yeah. And like, I was sad to see some of the characters go. It was amazing how much fondness gets baked in almost immediately to the point where like Sally's one character, Hank the Silent, I was really rooting for him. He was our first casualty. And I still feel a little bad about that. I don't remember the name of the next Hank that got it, but I do remember Hank the Silent, and it's a little sad.
Dear listener, Sally had 4 Hanks. She had Hank the Silent, Hank the Tank, Hank Hill, and Henry Rollins.
Henry Rollins, yes.
Which is probably going to be the last guy to go.
Henry Rollins is an elf. So like I keep picturing of like those old, when he was just starting out in Black Flag, when he had like the long hair and like just looks so pretty, you know. So that's the Henry Rollins that I pictured running around Dungeon Crawl Classics with us last night.
It's funny because little side path here. You know, when I first saw, you know, Henry Rollins, Black Flag, it was like shaved head. You're like, this guy would definitely beat me up. And then like I saw Henry Rollins, like early pictures of Black Flag when he had the long hair. And I'm like, well, he's like kind of hunky. Like
he's so pouty, you know?
Yeah. Like he would not only beat me up, but he would steal my girlfriend. And I'd be like, you know what? Cool. I accept this. I'm happy to take this out, Henry Rollins. But it was fun. I mean, part of the fun about it is that your guys will just die. And they'll just die in the most splendid and stupid fashions possible. Like I think her first guy got like eaten by a tree monster.
Yeah. And he only had 1 hit point. So like what was going to really happen there?
I think that's the fun though. I think that's the fun because playing traditional D&D, a lot of times people get very protective of their characters, because there's a lot involved in conceptualizing the character. And then you roll the character, you try to make this person who you think is going to be like the hero and going to be able to handle any situation. And you're going to have at least, I think in 5th edition D&D, you're probably going to have at least 10 or so hit points, right?
Yeah.
DCC, I had a guy with 2, I had a guy with 1, and I had 2 guys miraculously with 5, and they were the tanks.
Yeah, I have 2 1s, a 4, and an 8, I think. But I like a lot of the little fine grain things like luck. I think is a really nice feature. I love a good luck system. It puts a little bit more control in the hands of the player, which I think is always, especially in a game like the Dungeons and Dragons rooted game. I think that leads to interesting places, especially with the sort of cost benefit analysis that you have to do in Dungeon Crawl Classics, because if you you can spend luck on a 1-to-1 basis to get bonuses for your die rolls, but luck is also an attribute. So if you roll luck after you've spent all your luck, you automatically fail, or you lower your chances to sidestep stuff. And I think that's a good little bet. But I also like the little special abilities. Like my guys all had little blessings or whatever that would buff their rolls. And it's just a little bit, not too much, nothing that's gonna send the thing careening out of balance, but just a little bit of stuff to, you're 0 level. You don't have a lot to do, but you still do have a couple things you can manage and look at, which is all manageable in the greater context of having to run 4 characters. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do because all 4 of my guys are still standing. And I think that's weird. I was really trying to get Hamish killed by the end, and we just ran out of time. I feel like that next room, he would have gotten it in the neck.
Oh, yeah. No, the next room we got through most of the scenario last night. We did it. We're breaking it up into 2 parts. And, it's funny because certain characters at such a low level, a hard fart will kill you. And yet Stu's guys are going in there and they're doing everything. And for some reason, nothing is sticking. Nothing is sticking.
It's not even all my guys. It's Hamish. Hamish has been doing he's you can lower me down the hole. I'll go into the tomb. I'm going to grab that axe, even though he didn't keep the axe. He was too weak to wield the axe, but he was all right there to, put those robes on. That's a good idea.
It's fun because the DCC system is really, I think, better attuned to an adventurer's actual journey, where when you level up in other systems, suddenly you went from being badass at level 1 to being I'm a super badass at level 2, and at level 3, watch out world, where here it takes longer to get from 0 to 1, and especially from 1 to 2. And so when you get to level 5 in DCC, you're still really fragile, and you're still going to be really dependent on survival, making those luck rolls. And you're never going to make good decisions, but you're going to try to make some better decisions.
And the levels, the level cap is really low, right?
Off the top of my head, I think it's 10.
I think that it maxes at 10. I think most of I think you don't really see adventures at that level either. I'm just thinking of the few Lankmar ones. I think that they top out at 6.
They make high level adventures as well. One of the coolest things I think about DCC is that at this point they are prolific with a number of different adventures that you can play.
Well, they just kickstarted module number 100.
Exactly. And there's no signs of stopping because people are loving this stuff, and people have loved it for a very long time, and now people are loving it more than ever. And I think that's so cool. And I'm very happy for them with their massive success of DCC 100, and also being a company that's great about allowing other people to make things for their system. So, we're talking 100 legitimate releases for DCC. There's a ton of other people doing great stuff for DCC as well. Our friend Levi Combs just put out a DCC edition of Jungle Tomb and the Mummy Bride. You can do it. If you're an adventure writer, never been a better time to write for DCC. And that being said, this is one of the OGs, Sailors on the Starless Sea. I don't even know what I would compare it to as far as, a D&D module that everyone should play. Because in fairness, with Dungeons and Dragons, there's even more modules. However, when people talk about DCC, what's a good starting point? Everyone's Sailors on the Starless Sea. This is the classic funnel. This is the one you want to do. Because and I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't played it yet, but there's a lot of, I think, different types of layers to this adventure. And it combines several tropes from classic D&D that I love, and finds a way to kind of blend them seamlessly into one adventure. Nothing feels bolted on in this. And then where it takes you, you're just like, huh, really? Oh no.
Yeah, where we left off was like a powerful swerve. I was talking to Zog afterwards, and I was very much like, man, like I expected like A, B, and C, and we got X, and he's like, oh well, you sidestepped A, B, and C. I was like, oh, that's great, because I really didn't want to do A, B, and C, but I'm glad that it's there. I'm glad that my instincts were right.
Well, we knew what was waiting for us in ABC.
Yeah,
and it wasn't good.
No, it wasn't at all. But I think that this has a nice sort of like, as soon as we kind of, the basic framework is very Keep on the Borderlands to me.
It is.
But like a really compressed and weirded up Keep on the Borderlands. Like you don't have to worry about like these gigantic caves that you're going to have to go back and forth to. You're zero level. Like, I don't know why I thought it was going to be a much longer journey, but I feel like we really left it like almost the end.
Yeah, I think so. I would liken it to Keep on the Borderlands, but I would say that there's a definite, not so much even a fork in the road where you have like two paths you can go down. I think it's more of a traffic circle where you can go in that weird circle and decide which path you want to go. Because I think that we could have went A, B, C. I think there was definitely a D, E, F we could have explored, but we went right to X. So
yeah, the dungeon feels very compact. We're running pretty loose. You know, we had the overland map was up there, and like that gave me kind of like a, without any kind of labeling, like I felt like I had a handle on the space. There's not like a lot of rooms or anything. It's just like areas more like, and the subterranean area is a little bit more puzzling, but it still feels fairly linear.
Yeah, I mean, it felt good. It felt good. It felt very old hat, but in the best ways where, you know, you're saddling up for something like this. And you kind of don't exactly know what's going to happen at the party, but you know what kind of party you're going to. And if there's something that feels really great about it. And, you know, I will say this, our friend Sean, who Stu and I have been playing Dungeons and Dragons with since Christ left Pittsburgh, he is, I don't want to say hard to please, but he loves Dungeons and Dragons as much as we do. And the notion came up, our buddy Cheese was like, hey, why don't we try out DCC? Because we've been playing 5th edition D&D for so long over the pandemic. I was like, yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. And I popped it out there for Sean. Sean got a hold of the rule book, and Sean, who never texted me. Now, I want this to be clear. Sean is one of my dearest friends in the world. He's essentially family to Stu and I. He doesn't like texting. He has been texting me every week about Dungeon Crawl Classics, and he is enthusiastically texting, not even like, you know, hey, are we playing tonight? It's like, oh, I just read this part of the book. This is so great, to the point where he's read that book cover to cover. And even though I'm the one running it, he is like co-running it, because I'll do something and Sean will be like, hey guys, why don't you do this? Because in the book, it says this, this, and this. So I don't even have to read the whole book. I have Sean Dillon. So I think that's a real testament to the system itself and why so many older veterans of the game love coming and playing DCC, and why new players who come to it get very excited about it, because this rule book is great. It's easy to read. There's a lot of freedom to do the things that you want to do in DCC. And for a dude like Sean Dillon, who's always kind of wanted to go back to like first, second edition, to be like, nope, this is perfect. Let's do this forever. I think that's a really big deal. And that's why the house system at Casa de Hambone is now DCC.
There you go. Yeah, it's it has a good energy. I really appreciate it. I'd like to publicly thank Zog for twisting my arm on this. A couple other people have been whispering in my ear about reevaluating my DCC opinions, and we already did the podcast on this, so I've already been like, I'm wrong. You should play this game, but here you get it again. I was wrong. DCC is really good.
Yeah, for the full Mea Koopa, listen to the back episodes.
Yeah.
So that's it, man. I mean, we're having a quick conversation today about it because I have the flu, and if you haven't figured it out yet, I barely have a voice. Stu, do you have any final thoughts on our first time playing DCC together?
No, I don't. But I do think that folks should try the funnel. It's better than I thought. It works in surprising ways, and even reading about how they're supposed to work, I feel like it just in play. That's always the way it works out, though. At the table is always a whole different thing than in the laboratory, you know?
100%. I will say, though, having read the book and having played this for a little bit, this is the closest book to table translation that actually like works. between like what you see in the book and what you think is going to happen and what happens at the table. This is like the closest you're going to get to like a 1-for-1 translation. So I can't say enough great things about it. And I look forward to playing it for many, many years to come. And this was another amazing edition, albeit a sick edition, of the Vintage RPG podcast. Stu, where can the people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Vintage RPG. I don't know if I do. I do have some DCC stuff coming this year. I have no idea when, because I wrote all that stuff last fall. And it just, it falls right out of my brain. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's some good stuff coming up.
Very cool. And you can find me on the Twitter, Instagram, and on the TikTok at John McGuire RPG. I am posting more because I'm leaving the house. I'm actually going to GaryCon next week, and that's why it's good that I got sick this week. And not only am I going to GaryCon, I'm also going to go to Noble Night Games, and there will be content up on our feeds. I'm going to do a little tour of Noble Night before I actually hit the floor at GaryCon, so definitely stay tuned for that. You could also check out my adventure, Rocket to Russia, live now on Exalted Funeral if you want to pick up one of my 321 action adventures. And if you want a free rule book, go to 321actiongames.com. We got plenty of stuff for you, plenty of stuff coming out, more fun stuff in the works. And speaking of fun stuff, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerpg. We've got early release episodes. We got a behind the scenes look at Stu's book, still tentatively titled Experience Points. We've got a behind the scenes look at 321 action. We have other fun stuff in a killer Discord community. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe because your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dego West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.